start here today, so that I don't waste any of your time. Happy Tuesday. Yeah, it's Tuesday. I lose track of my days. Happy Tuesday, folks. It's good to see everybody. I hope you're doing good and feeling good. To introduce myself, my name is Eli Hamrick. I teach at Ronald Reagan High School in Winston-Salem, Forsyth County Schools. Taught accounting several years now. Have learned, stole, borrowed resources from some of the best. Because I always believe I can be better and I can always do better. So today is kind of a culmination of a lot of those resources and from talking to people, even some people here who are in the session today, about things about how to do accounting. Because I'll be honest, I took over accounting from a teacher who retired in my school, and I was not overly thrilled. There's a lot of people who are diehard accounting people who love accounting, who live and breathe it. And that wasn't necessarily me coming in. I was a little hesitant about it. I was kind of the person who was like, oh, here we go. We're going to stick you with this because you'll do it. So my advice is don't be scared about it. I'll be real. I was a little intimidated. I took 2 accounting classes even in college, but I didn't remember any of it. So for y'all out there, I see that 1 or 2 people in the chat have said this is their first year teaching it. You're going to be good. So don't be intimidated by it. I've learned to really like it. I think very simplistically, very logically, and accounting to me is that. Accounting in some ways is like a puzzle. If things don't fit, if things aren't going together, then that's usually a sign that something's happening, that something is up. So do not be intimidated by accounting, like I think it can be in some instances. Before we get going, I will, just in case anybody wants it, I'm going to put my email in the chat. I should put it on the slide. That's my bad. But I will also put the slide up on the Moodle sometime later today, too. So if you want it, I've tried to hyperlink a lot of stuff that's in this presentation. To outside resources. So feel free to click on any of the links. There's some Google Docs. I've tried to make them so it will do a forced copy for you so that you can go in and make copies of these documents. Again, a lot of these documents, I'll be honest, I didn't make. I'm not going to take credit for them. So I'll usually tell you where they come from. So but that's what it's about. It's about sharing. And with that being said, too, if you have any ideas as we go through, please feel free to interrupt me. You are not going to hurt my feelings. I 100% promise you that. Feel free to interrupt, to interject, put in the chat, to say it out loud, whatever it may be. Please let me know. So I'm going to go, the way I kind of structure this today is I'm going to go with kind of a broad overview talking about it, and then we're going to kind of go unit by unit. So I kind of cluster some together as we talk about kind of accounting 1 and some best practices on how we do that. So to start with, this is the official DPI Develop Blueprint. And you may have to make a presentation full screen on your screen to be able to see that better, because I know it's kind of tiny here. Starting, it's comprised of 6 units in totality. Units 1 and 2 are more relatively new. Accounting 1 and 2 went through a revamp about 2 to 3 years ago now, from what it was to what it is today. And when that happened, these first couple units were added to the curriculum. And the idea behind units 1 and 2, I think, are to help give some of the why to accounting. What is accounting? What do the career prospects look like for accounting? What does the profession in general look like in accounting? That's unit 2. And then after that, I always tell my students, after unit 2 is when we actually get into accounting. In my opinion, that's when we actually start talking about how we do this thing called accounting that we talk about continually in a class named Accounting 1. With units 3, 4 being the big one. I'll talk about that here in a few minutes. And then units 5 and 6, focusing on some more specialized types areas of accounting. So units 1 and units 2. I'll be honest, I don't, and this may just be a personal opinion of mine. Sorry if this offends anybody. I struggle with unit 1 and 2, and I struggle in the sense of I struggle to make it engaging. I want to get through unit 1 and 2 typically as quick as I can. Because after 1 and 2 is when we get into what is accounting. How do we do this thing called accounting? Because I think it's hard sometimes because you start the class, if you teach it in order of the blueprint and orders of the indicators, you start right out the gate with, okay, let's talk about accounting, let's talk about the careers, let's talk about the professional organizations in unit 2, let's talk about the ethics in unit 2. But we don't talk about, but kids don't understand still, what is accounting? I mean, we say that term over and over in the class, accounting, but what is it? So I do know there are some people who teach unit 1 and 2 later in the course, or who circle back around and teach it at the end, and have had success doing that. I truthfully have still left it in the beginning. I still just start off with unit 1 and 2 because I'm truthfully trying to get knocked out. So then for the rest of the semester, we can focus simply on doing accounting and actually practicing what we preach in some sense. So unit 1 is made up 101, 102, 103. The idea behind it is to focus on understanding the field. What are the careers in accounting? And as well as what are the basic types of business ownership, sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation, LLC. I would say one of the biggest things when accounting 1 went through a revamp that was added was indicator 1.03. 1.03 is a very brief thing on Excel. And it doesn't necessarily do Excel justice. I approach it in the sense of, I'm not trying to teach Excel to them. I'm trying to scrape the surface with my little fingernail in terms of what I'm teaching them about Excel. Because you can go on. We have a whole class in BFM on Excel by itself and spreadsheets. But they do need a hair of understanding. I've seen how important that is. I don't know for y'all who've taught accounting before, who've taught accounting 1. I've also taught accounting 2, and some of you probably have as well. Accounting 2, I did rely on Excel more, and I found that a lot of kids have absolutely no idea about how to use Excel. They have no idea how to approach it. They have no idea how to make it do anything. So the way I approach Excel is I'm teaching them how do you enter a formula, plus, minus, division, multiplication, and some basic terminologies that you see embedded into the curriculum. Values, labels. And for whatever reason, I've seen a question on merge and center. So I always make sure to hit that random topic for about 5 minutes one day. The merge and center button, which, as the name implies, merges the cells and centers the text. But after that, I don't necessarily spend a lot of time 1.03. Again, I'm not there to teach Excel. I'm trying to teach accounting, but we do have to cover that little bit of Excel. And then unit 2 is focused on accounting professionalism and organizations. And this is the one I probably struggle with the most, because if you look at the PowerPoints that I found for it, they are incredibly in depth. I mean, they're almost, in my opinion, like CPA level type deals. So I talk about the organizations, I talk some about the ethics, and I hit the PowerPoint about how we do accounting 1 in terms of the ethics real quick, and then we just kind of talk through some scenarios. Because I think to do any more is to really get into the weeds, so to say, and kids really begin to struggle with that. So that's why a lot of times I don't take a lot of time there in that sense to do it. I just kind of hit it real quick and move on. So for units 1 and 2, as you hear me begin to talk about in the next, sorry, as you hear me begin to talk about in units 3 and on, this idea of Cengage and using Cengage, which I'm a huge proponent of. Units 1 and 2, don't necessarily have as many Cengage tie-ins. So there are some projects that are embedded. I think one of the most important projects to do, one of the, I don't want to say standard bearers of accounting, is to play Monopoly. And in the curriculum guide, they do a good job of this idea of kind of developing Monopoly. You have the students just play it at first, just to remember what Monopoly is. You'd be surprised in this day and age. I've had students who are like, I don't know how to play Monopoly. I'm like, who doesn't know how to play Monopoly? But there are some kids who do not know how to play Monopoly in this day and age. So, and then progress to where they're recording their transactions and to bring those accounting tie-ins in later in. So what I'm going to do here, I want to just show you a couple of these projects that I use in Units 1 and 2. I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully it works good. And I'm also going to turn my camera off so to preserve bandwidth and make things run as smoothly as they possibly can be. So I'm going to stop sharing my webcam first, and I'm going to share my screen here today. Can everybody see my screen now? I think so.
Right. Yes, I can see it. It looks like 5 million little screens.
Yes, it's screens within the screens. Yes. All right, perfect. Thank y'all. All right, so the first project is Monopoly, and I think one of the things about Monopoly was it's challenging. You know, I wish I'd had this. I actually I stumbled upon this resource actually just a couple weeks ago when I was out hiking with a couple other business teachers, and we got talking about different stuff. And one said, "Well, we played Monopoly." I said, "Well, how'd you play Monopoly this past year when we're in the middle of a global pandemic and we weren't together?" I said, "What?" I said, "What's happening?" And he said, "I created it." So this, I think, is really cool and one of the coolest resources I've seen. So this is a virtual Monopoly built inside Google Sheets with macros. They can click on dice 1 and dice 2, and it will random number generator. They can come down and they can move their little game pieces on the board. They can record their balance.
Eli, I have not seen anything about all those screens. Have you shared the Monopoly screen?
Thought I had. Hang on. Let me try something else. Thank you, Elizabeth. Hang on one second. Okay. I think this time I'll have to do it. All right. Can we see now?
Yes, I can see the Monopoly board now.
Perfect. All right. So thanks, Elizabeth. So I got to figure out now how I'm going to have to do it. I'm going to have to do some bouncing back and forth. That's going to be okay. So, so again, here's Monopoly. And again, we see the dice that can be clicked on by students. We see the community chest and chance that when clicked on will randomize some through macros. Students can record their name and the balances. They can put down what properties they own, as well as here's the rules. Because again, I have quickly learned that in the 21st century, there are kids who don't know how to play Monopoly, which kind of blows my mind to some extent. It makes me feel old, but it's the reality. So, so this is a great resource. Again, we don't know what the 2021-2022 school year is going to look like, but I think this is a great resource to be used to take the place of the traditional Monopoly game. And can just be used if you don't have, 4 or 5, 6 Monopoly boards sitting around your classroom. I do actually have that many sitting around, maybe more, but I know a lot of people don't. So this Monopoly is a great resource for that. The next thing is the personal budget project. And so the personal budget project, this is good to help engage students with Excel. And I know it's kind of difficult to do. I know every time I do any type of personal budget project, the kids are always like, well, how do I know how much money I'm going to spend on this or how much money I'm going to spend on this? But I find that I tell them, Google it, look it up, figure it out. And I think there's some merit in making kids do like a personal budget project. I've had more than one student do a personal budget project with a career they thought they were going to do, and got to the end and they're like, oh, maybe I need to rethink my career if I want to make more money, or if I want to have the standard of living I'm accustomed to now. So this is good because it helps them to kind of begin to think about, it challenges them to think about that long-term mindset. What's 5, 10 years down the road look like? But also doing it in the context of making them do it in Excel or Google Sheets if you don't have access to the Microsoft Suite. So it's practicing those Microsoft skills and giving that real world application. So then the final project is one that I actually created. Because again, and it's one I keep intending to build out more to make it a semester-long project. That has not happened yet. But it's one because I really struggle with units 1 and 2. What can I do to try to get the kids vested in it, to try to engage them? So what I developed and came up with was this right here. I call it the accounting business project. So I put kids in the role and mindset of being in charge of an accounting department for a medium-sized business, which I said is usually like 250 employees. I tell them the project's going to be semester long. It hasn't quite made it there yet. The hope is it will eventually make it there. But they turn in these first 2 parts at the end of Unit 1, and then another part at the end of Unit 2. So what it is, the Unit 1 part is parts 1, which is just a tile page. Part 2, which is just a table of contents. The real meat and potatoes is part 3 and 4. Part 3 is tell me about your company. I do tell them it needs to be a service company, and that's simply for simplicity's sake. There's not typically as much accounting involved with a service company as it is for a merchandising business. So that's why I have them start with that service company. What do you do? How long have you been in business? What are your qualifications? So this is beginning to pull in some of those ideas from Unit 1 about being an accounting, which typically takes a 4-year degree. So they can take the creative liberties to say they went to this school and got a 4-year accounting degree, and maybe now they're even a CPA. And I'm also a big proponent of trying to build, in some ways, literacy in. And I've struggled with how to build literacy into accounting. So if anybody has any ideas for that, I'm definitely up for it. But this is one way I feel like I can build literacy in, is making them do this project. And then part 4 is design a hierarchy chart for their accounting department. So again, that's talking about those accounting careers where we talk about accounting clerks, bookkeepers, accountants, and CPAs. What type of people would be in an accounting department? And then continuing to fall into that with they have to develop a job posting for a position in the department, whether that's a bookkeeper or a staff accountant, whatever it may be. So they turn in those 4 at the end of Unit 1. And then for Unit 2, what I have here, I have a link to the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants, AICPA, who's kind of course, one, if not the big standard bearer for setting the ethical standards about how accounts should be done and maintain the CPA professionalism and designation. They have lists out 5 different kind of big umbrella, if you want to call them tenets, or they call it a code of conduct, for accountants should follow. So what I make students do is write a paragraph about how their accounting department, their fictional accounting department, is going to follow along, or how they are going to meet those standards. So sometimes students struggle with this one, but the website does a good job of being fairly succinct in laying it out, what the standards are, and then students can read that and then think through how would that look in real life? How would an accounting department meet that in real life? So that's Units 1 and 2. And again, those are probably my least 2 favorite. Sorry if anybody really likes them, but that's what we have for Units 1 and 2. So in Unit 3, I get excited for Unit 3 because Unit 3 for me is where we start to really get into what is accounting. While Unit 3 is not the longest unit, that's Unit 4 by far. Unit 3 is on like, I think 10% or so. Unit 3 is huge. Unit 3 sets the foundation for everything else that's to come, because that's where students are initially introduced to the accounting equation, and they're introduced to credits and debits and the idea of double entry bookkeeping. I tell my students, you have to get Unit 3 or the rest of this class is going to be a struggle for you, because I'm not going to sugarcoat it for them. So they have to get Unit 3 down. So vocabulary is key. Vocabulary is a huge part of Unit 3, of what's there. So I really focus on vocabulary. I'll talk about some of these later on, but Quizlet and Pear Deck. Quizlet's my go-to. I've used Pear Deck as well too for vocabulary reinforcement. I'm also a fan of Bingo. If you go to that where it says Bingo there, if you click on the presentation when I post it on Moodle, it'll take you to a website called My Free Bingo Cards, where you can type in all the terms you want, and it will make bingo cards for you. And you just cut them out and hand them out to students. So that is one of the things. I try to do most everything digital. That is one of the things I still will do a paper, pencil, real deal copy of. So I also have the video here. I'm going to pop it up here for a minute and show you. I'm hoping the sound works. I think other people use this in the state too. I'll be real, after a few days, it gets a little annoying to me. But it does a good job of helping to reinforce what's debit and what's a credit, especially when you're just starting out with the idea of T-charts, and that debits go on the left of the T-chart and credits go on the right. I was in a alternatives to accounting session yesterday with Ashley Faulkner, and somebody in the chat put in there, and they may even be in here, that they told their kids, or they had thought about credit has an R in it and R's on the right. I thought that was pretty clever. I never thought of that idea. So again, I'm one of these people, I always believe I can be better. My way of doing things is by no means like God's given way to teach accounting 1 by any stretch. So I'm going to play the video, just the first little snippet. I know some of you have heard it. Some of you probably use it. So I'm hoping the sound comes through. We're going to find out. So let's see. All right. Y'all hear the sound for that?
Not yet. It's not playing yet, though.
Okay. Y'all hear it now?
No.
Okay. So sound must not come through.
If you
That's all
do
right.
the video link, you can actually hit the plus button, and you can actually put the link in there. Eli, try that
Okay.
way. Hit
Let's
the plus
see.
button and do the link for the video.
Share an external video.
Yes, sir.
All right. Let me do it.
And maybe we can hear it then.
Let's see here. I got my. Oh. I thought I was doing it. There we go.
Okay. Now it's
All right.
coming
There we
up,
go. All right.
and we'll
Y'all
just
hear it
give
now?
everybody. It might play automatically for some when Eli hits play, but if not, hit the play button, and we'll give everybody 3 minutes approximately to watch it.
Okay. So what Elizabeth just said, if y'all ain't here, because I know I had this issue yesterday because it did not play automatically for me. It may play automatically for some of you may not. I'm only gonna play about the first minute or so. So I will be back here in just a second.
I need a folded clover. If you are willing to work hard, then can it. It's the most sought after job on this planet. Now, you tell me you want to be an impartial judge of my solvency. Now, you tell me you want to protect the world from corporate fraudulency. Now, all that sounds like fun, son, but you gotta walk before you can run. left, get it from the right. Never left, get it right, never left, get it right. Complete satisfaction, balance all of your transactions. Get it from the left, get it from the right. Never left, get it right, never left, get it right. Complete satisfaction, balance all of your transactions. Balance all of your transactions.
All right, so I'm gonna see if I can switch back to my presentation now here real quick. I'll figure out how to get back to it. Hang on just a sec. That's not it.
You'll have to reshare or probably re-upload it using that action button, Eli.
Okay. It was still in there. Okay, let me try to just re-upload it here. Oh, I know that. I figured it out there. There's a stop sharing on that plus. Thank you. Thanks, Beth. Again, there's some good ideas in the chat. I saw as well, too, while the video is playing from Jolene and Amanda as well. And Denise, always fun to challenge students to create their own videos. I'm a big proponent of that. I make my kids, not in counting as much, but in other classes, do music videos for different units and topics and such. And I don't know, I just think it's wonderful. So Jolie also says she has students use T-charts all through the course. That's maybe not a bad idea either. So again, there's not one perfect way to do it, but Unit 3 is so crucial, again, for setting that foundation, for making sure kids have a solid understanding of what is a credit, what is a debit, and then also that idea of the accounting equation, assets equals liabilities plus owner's equity. They have to get that. If students don't get that, the rest of the course is going to be a struggle for them. So that has to be there. So then we get to Unit 4. Unit 4 is the biggie. This is doing accounting, starting there with journalizing and then finishing up with all the way of doing the closing entries. So Unit 4 is really where the meat and potatoes is for the class. So I think if you look in SchoolNet, which we thankfully have a question bank now. There's almost 100 questions in SchoolNet solely focused on Unit 4, solely focused on a lot of how we do transactions. You know, if this happens, what's debited, what's credited, type of situation. So you're going to spend a large amount of time on Unit 4. So it's going through that accounting cycle. Now, when I say there are two main ways to approach it, there's kind of two orders, and there's two ways. When Accounting 1 and Accounting 2 were redone, they were redone to be what I would say textbook neutral. You could teach it even maybe without textbook, which I personally think would be incredibly hard, but some people may do it. But it was meant not to follow along with a textbook. With that being said, the other way, a lot of people, myself included, use the Cengage textbooks and are lucky enough to have the accompanying online textbooks and problems, which we refer to now as MindTap. It used to be called my first year teaching accounting, it was still Applia, and then Cengage made the transition over on the next one. And I'm going to talk more about what is Cengage and what is MindTap on the next slide, as well as some contact information for an awesome fellow there who has helped me out more times, and I probably would like to admit, and he would probably tell you because he's a good guy. So you can teach it. You don't need a textbook to teach accounting. If you open up the curriculum guide, it's there, and you can do it that way. I think you're gonna have to find some supplemental stuff to help enhance it, to help teach it, but you can do it that way. But I think everybody I know in the state has usually some type of textbook to help with accounting. The other thing about approaching how to teach accounting, some people will teach straight down. So if you go to Unit 4, they'll teach 401, 402, so on and so forth, all the way to the end, which is 603, I believe, to 603. And that's how I taught accounting for the first year, maybe 2 years, was to teach it straight from the blueprint, to teach it in the order of the blueprint. But what you'll find if you teach it that way is that you end up kind of jumping around a lot. You jump from here to there, somewhere else, and I think it gets confusing. And then there was the idea proposed by a couple people I know to teach it following the textbook, which is the Cengage textbook. And with that being said, I do have a copy of this. I don't own the rights to this, and I will say that up front. I believe, I was trying to think the other day where this came from. For y'all out there, I believe this is from Wake County. So y'all from Wake County, I really appreciate y'all. This was shared in one of those sharing sessions we had during the pandemic. But this is the idea of how to teach it in the order of the Cengage textbook. So if you have it, if you have the Cengage textbook, this is the way to do it, in my opinion. It's to teach it straight following the textbook, starting with 1-1, 1-2. I don't do chapter 1 as much. I'll do some of chapter 2 for units, excuse me, for indicators 301 and 302. But then you see here, if you follow the book, you're going to actually go from, when you go from chapters 3 and 4 to chapters 5, you're actually skipping from 401 to 501, because you're going from preparing posting journal entries, which is the very first part of unit 4, to then talking briefly about reconciling bank statements, which is more focused on unit 5. And then you're going to go, and then you see here that chapter 6 and 7 are actually 4.04. So the difference that you will see is really what happens is it comes down to this. If you teach it following the blueprint, you're going to teach how to journalize first for a service business, and then you're going to teach how to journalize for a merchandising business. So, which is more in depth than a service business. If you teach it following Cengage, what you're going to do is you're going to teach the entire accounting cycle from journalizing to closing entries for a service business. And then you're going to kind of go back and almost reteach it again in some ways and teach the accounting cycle again. But this time you're teaching it for a merchandising business, which is more in depth. I think for me, that has been the easier way. I think it's also been better for my students because it's almost like a whole nother month of reinforcement. While yes, we add new elements in, like inventory, for example, which we don't focus on as much with a service business. By doing it again like that, it reinforces those concepts about how to do different things, whether it's journalizing, whether it's posting to ledgers, whether it's developing the financial statements that we focus on in accounting 1. Whatever it may be, I felt like my students have been a lot more successful following this order of going through the textbook, the chapter order, then going through the blueprint order. But I think it's a personal preference. Again, I know people do it both ways. For me, that's the way that's been better. So then you've heard me talk about this thing called Cengage. You've heard me talk about this thing called MindTap. I was in a PLT for accounting folks in my accounting one year, and the comment was brought up. What would you do if you didn't have MindTap? And one of the people in the group made the response of, I wouldn't teach accounting. And while that may seem aggressive and may seem like, oh, I'll be honest, I feel very much so the same way. MindTap for me is a lifesaver. There's a lady who teaches a school very close to mine, and she's finally using MindTap for the first time in like 20 years of teaching accounting. Up to now, she hand graded everything, which to me is almost unfathomable, especially when you get into bigger problems and bigger ideas. I'm like, how in the world do you go about doing all this and have time for anything else, because especially when you get into something that has 30 transactions and you have to go through the journalizing and the posting, I can't imagine trying to do all that. So this is MindTap. MindTap accompanies the Cengage textbook. It does require subscription that I'm blessed that the county I'm in pays for. I know lots of other counties do too, because I would make the argument it is almost invaluable when teaching accounting. It syncs with Canvas. It has an application built in, and you can have the grades automatically be pulled over. It grades automatically. I can literally not stress to you how important that is to me. The kids get that instantaneous feedback. And now for y'all who already use MindTap, I don't know what order you may go in. I'd be very curious to hear, because again, what I do is by no means like the best. What I do is I use the working papers. So the working papers I view as almost like the practice problems, and there's the work together and there's the own your own. I usually do the work together with them, then have them do the own your own. Sometimes by themselves, sometimes I let them use a partner. And then the application problems, I usually make them do by themselves to get a good sense of what do you understand. And then there's mastery problems built in, which are longer problems. Sometimes I'll use those as projects. And now for my honors kids, because I teach almost all my accounting classes are accounting 1 and honors accounting 1. So I have it combined where I have students who are taking it for the honors credit and students who do not. I use the mastery problems as well as the reinforcement problems. The reinforcement problems are incredibly large problems. Like reinforcement 1A goes through half the accounting cycle for a business. Reinforcement 1B goes through the other half. Those are used as project grades for my honors class. I got a little video I'm going to show here. I have it embedded if you want to watch the whole thing. I'm not going to show the whole link here in a minute. But before we get there, I know some people put in the chat, and they are 100% correct. The information you see down there is for a gentleman named Kedrick Lewis, who is one of the nicest human beings on earth and is incredibly helpful. If you need anything, Kedrick will let you know. Kedrick will hook you up. If you're not using Cengage and you're just interested in it, call Kedrick up. I called him up last year because I could not find an updated copy of my Accounting 2 textbook to save my life. He sent me a copy of the Accounting 2 textbook, the working paper problems, the physical copy, as well as the physical answer key, all for Accounting 2. So he covers the entire state of North Carolina. I checked with him. I emailed him before I gave this presentation and said, hey, this is what I'm doing. Can I put your information in there? He said, absolutely. I said, you do cover the whole state, don't you? He said, yes. He covers the entire state of North Carolina from Murphy to Manio. So I encourage you, if you've not, reach out to him. If nothing else, get the textbook. It's another resource for you to do. I think the Cengage textbook and materials are very well done. I think they break it down into good bits for the students to understand. Yeah, somebody just said he's not pushy. He's not pushy. I've never felt pressure by Kedrick. He's never been like, oh, you got to buy this, or your county's got to. And somebody also made the good point. They also have PowerPoints. I use all the PowerPoints. All my PowerPoints come straight from Cengage because somebody else said that he can give you access to the online teacher portal. And in that online teacher portal is all the PowerPoints for all the chapters, as well as just a whole host of resources. So, and he's always been quick to respond. I think I wrote him something last year and he took like 2 days to respond and apologized profusely for taking 2 days. He had something going on and I didn't mind at all. I mean, 2 days was not unreasonable by any stretch. So he is always so quick to respond and he's so helpful. So I would 100% recommend reach out to Kedrick. If you're teaching accounting and you haven't already in some way, even if you already use Cengage or MindTap, if you've not, reach out to Kedrick and just see if there's any new resources or if you want a new copy of the books. excuse me, because most of the time the books stay the same from edition to edition, but there are changes. But I would absolutely recommend reach out to him and just tell him who you are, what school you're with, and he'll get something in the mail to you. So he's a wonderful resource to have. I'm going to show just a little video kind of showing some of the MindTap platform. I'm going to show about the first minute or two of it. It's a total of a 6-minute video. This was actually Kedrick sent this to me as well. I said, hey, you got a video that can show me a little bit about MindTap? But yeah, so here it is.
Using MindTap for century reinforcement activities bolster accounting concepts and procedures learned in parts 1, 2, and 3 of the textbook. Corresponding book pages are listed in the online assignment. Reinforcement activities are multi-part and graded with each step. Question assets can easily be adjusted and moved to save time scrolling to find information. Interactive ebook lessons contain the chapter reading, including features like Accounting in the Real World, Ethics in Action, Why Accounting, and the End of Chapter Review. The End of Lesson Review folder contains the online working paper, Work Together, and On Your Own assignments, as well as additional vocabulary review and Audit Your Understanding short answer questions. Online paper assignments will be automatically graded, and these scores will flow to your gradebook. Students receive instant feedback as soon as they submit. Study Hall includes the same practice assignments found in your textbook. A look at accounting software offers step-by-step computerized accounting skills using the running business case as an example.
So I'm going to go ahead and stop there. But again, especially if you're not using it, I highly encourage you to go watch the entire video when I put the PowerPoint on the Moodle. Cengage is something, it makes teaching accounting, in my opinion, a lot funner. I know funner is not a word, and a lot easier. So for the students and for you as the teacher. So then to kind of wrap up the units here, the last two are units 5 and 6. Again, if you've taught them in order of the blueprint, you would teach these last. If you are teaching them in the order of the Cengage textbook, you've covered these well long ago. Unit 5 and Unit 6 are focused on kind of what I call some specialized parts of accounting. Unit 5 is on banking and payroll. And I did find a pretty good project. If you look at the curriculum guide in 5.02, there's a project using the website called accountingcoach.com. And it's pretty good. Challenging students to look at that website and dig into it and then reteach it. And, studies have shown that's one of the most effective ways to learn is if you can take material in, digest it, and then reteach it to somebody else. And then Unit 6 is on notes and uncollectible accounts. This is compared to the other ones, it's one of the shortest units. It's definitely probably the shortest of the accounting units. Again, if you're teaching in the order of the Cengage textbook, you've probably covered these before the end. If you're teaching them as the blueprint, I say that last indicator on the blueprint is 6.03. This is a very short unit on depreciation. Depreciation is something that kids have at least heard of a lot of times, I found before. And I like to use it as a good spot to begin to plug and talk about accounting 2, because in accounting 1, we only teach one type of depreciation. We teach straight line depreciation. In accounting 2, there's a whole, I don't remember if it's a whole unit or a whole indicator now, but there's a good chunk that's focused on teaching other methods of how to do depreciation, such as the sum of the years depreciation. So this is a good spot to begin to plug Accounting 2, especially for those students who, have shown a lot of aptitude in Accounting 1, to plug Accounting 2 and all it has to offer. I know some people, I've done it. And Accounting 2, that's kind of a plug for it. I don't know when the session is. Danielle Sullivan is doing a session on practices for Accounting 2. She does marvelous at that. When I was trying to revamp my Accounting 2 class completely, I reached out to Danielle Sullivan, and she did a chat with me to make some big changes. But Accounting 2, one of the big things I push for with it is I do the QuickBooks software and have them attempt the QuickBooks certification. So this is a good spot to plug Accounting 2 and what Accounting 2 has to offer. So then I just want to wrap up kind of here with some accounting resources and some general resources I like. So here's some resources that are focused more solely on just accounting. And my favorite one is probably that top one, Start Here, Go Places. Start Here, Go Places is actually funded by the AICPA, again, American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. And they have a whole host, hopefully you can see it now. They have a whole host of projects and activities listing on the website, things that are as short as a 5 or 10 minute activity, all the way up to projects that can be ongoing or take, weeks in some situations. So this is a great website to look at just for good information, for free information. Again, Start Here, Go Places. Like this one, for example, is a 4-week activity. So again, it just depends what you're looking for. Because I know I'm always looking for new resources. I like to mix things up because I bore myself. So if I bore myself, I'm definitely going to bore the kids. But Start Here, Go Places is great. Accounting Coach and Accounting Info are good. Khan Academy has some good videos, as well as just YouTube. I probably should have put YouTube on here. I found sometimes if kids are struggling to understand a concept, I can go to YouTube and find a YouTube video on it, and something about them hearing it from somebody else helps it click. Amanda mentioned chat, and she's right. Start Here, Go Places also has a section where you can request free classroom resources, and they will actually take them and mail them. These are physical print resources to your school. It's actually, I was just there this morning, free classroom extras. If you go there, there's different types of items, recruitment posters, bingo, career guides, that you can get physical material sent to the school as well. Thanks for reminding me of that. So it's a great resource. It's a great website for accounting teachers out there. And then just general resources. These are what I use for review games. These are what I use for just trying to engage kids in different ways. Of course, I think, in my opinion, Kahoot, quizzes, and Quizlet are kind of some of the standards. Those are kind of some of my go-tos. I like quizzes more than I do Kahoot for accounting, because Kahoot has a character limit, and some of the accounting problems in SchoolNet are rather long. So I do tend to use quizzes more than I use Kahoot in this particular class. And then Blueprint's a new one that I was just introduced to at the end of last school year. It's similar to Kahoot and quizzes in that it asks questions, but there's different game modes. There are some that require students to have a little more strategy. They can essentially buy upgrades to get more points. So if I had a lot of students really like it, so I'm going to continue to use BlueKit going forward. GymKit is kind of similar to BlueKit. I think BlueKit's a little more polished. Goose Chase is the one I love. I only found it a little bit before the pandemic began, but it's one that I'm hoping we're gonna have kids back in the building. It's one I can begin to use again. And I'm just gonna show you real quick. So what this is actually my Accounting 1 Unit 1 review. So essentially it's a scavenger hunt. So you do have to trust your kids to some degree. But it's a scavenger hunt where students go, they download an app. So I have them one person in the group take their phone, they download it, and then they give submissions. And I set a time limit, so it's 20, 25 minutes, and they see it in the app. And then as they're doing stuff and submitting it, I'm getting stuff real time on my activity feed, leaderboard, and submissions. So each one of these is a question. And sometimes I just have them do random stuff. I'll say, go stand in this place in the hallway. This is one of my favorites. So what it is I challenge them. I say, go take a picture with the school bookkeeper. Well, the school bookkeeper is somebody that almost no high school student has any interaction with. At my school, she's tucked away back in the office. She truthfully really doesn't like to be bothered. I think she was rather frazzled. My students came looking for her. But she was a good sport and took pictures with them. So I said, take pictures with bookkeeper, and they get 800 points. But you have the ability as the game leader or the game facilitator to go in and to add and deduct points. So I will go through and check their submissions to make sure they get them right. And sometimes it's just something basic. You know, this one, I know y'all can't hear the video, but this one was videotape yourself doing a cheer about accounting, or it's accounting careers. I thought they were going to load. Come on. This one's make a video of your group telling us the 4 accounting careers we study outside of a 400 classroom. So I tell them, of course, not to disrupt class or anything like that. And thankfully, I genuinely have good students. But this is something good to get them out and about, to get them interacting in their school, and people see them in the hallways. So I really like the Goose Chase. And then Pear Deck and Class Tools are other good resources. So, folks, that is all I got today. It's 10:53 at the moment. If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to answer any questions people have. If people have any ideas to share, that's awesome too. It looks like I've glanced at the chat throughout. It looks like people have put some great resources, great ideas in the chat that I'm going to steal myself. Thanks for coming today. Thanks for your time. If you got any questions, I'm happy to answer them. If not, I hope y'all have a great rest of your summer. Enjoy it and have a great school year, and take care.
Thank you so much, Eli. Wonderful session, full of information. I really appreciate it. Great job.
Well, thanks, Beth. I appreciate it. So somebody asked me if I could go back to accounting resources. There you go. And I will put this PowerPoint on the Accounting One Moodle again. And all these should be linked to the right website that they go to.